G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and if you haven't seen yesterday's video, I do highly suggest you click off this one and go and watch it first, because yesterday's video is very much the introduction to today's video, so there'll probably be a spoiler to yesterday's video somewhere in today's video. But today's video, nevertheless, is a continuation from the action from Autodrome Largo Maggiore GP in Group 3 for the Manufacturers Series. So we are, of course, in the Toyota GR Supra Racing concept, and first of all, we do have to go out for qualifying in what is, I think, third split here. And let's go out here. A bit of lag, actually. It was a little bit concerning for me because I think I knocked the Hyundai, but it didn't appear that I did. So we gave ourselves a load of space. I don't really want any slipstream. I think slipstream is a little bit beneficial here, but I definitely prefer no slipstream if it's viable, and it is viable here. So we're just going to be looking to get a nice clean lap in. I did a track guide in yesterday's video. I've also done a really in-depth track guide, about half an hour long, where I stepped through pretty much every corner. So I'm not going to really point out too much here, but we are just going to be focusing on the kind of lines I'm taking and just exactly how well I get each corner down as we exit turn 4. That's the end of the first sector. The sector split is at the end of the straight, just before the turn 5 complex. In fact, we're pretty much braking directly on where the sector split happens, so not too bad of a lap so far. A bit of understeer out of turn 5 here, however. We're very wide. We are off that third and final inside exit apex at turn 5, so not the best lap so far. We don't quite get the turn in right for the guesses either, and you can see we're going to have a lift as we head through turn 8 to make sure we don't understeer wide off the track. But I mean, it's not a disaster of a lap so far. It's just not been the best. I've probably lost 2 or maybe even 3 tenths simply from running wide on the exit of turn 5. So the little bit of a mistake in the S's has just added on to that. We're really looking to get kind of a low 53, if I recall correctly. Pretty sure in yesterday's video I got a 53.5, which is, you know, it could be better, but it could also be worse. At a 53.3 in the first slot, which I haven't showed you, and I'm probably not going to show you because the race was very uninteresting. It was just me sort of learning what works in strategy. That's all first slot was. Second and third slots were the ones where the good action did occur. And, well, I mean, yesterday's video was really a complete disaster, wasn't it? I was running quite well until I had a bit of an incident with Salamander, currently on provisional pole position. We're going to come across the line and reveal that we've only managed to do a 53.6, and unfortunately for me, that was all I could muster up. I wasn't able to improve, so really not the best lap. I mean, lucky there's a massive gap from P2 to P3 of about 3 tenths or 2 tenths thereabouts, so I think we're lucky that no one really got a blistering time in. We will start 6th for the race, but not before the Manufacturers Series introduction. Lovely, as always, we meet ourselves on the grid. We actually see on pole position is a Jaguar F-Type. Now, Jaguar is actually a little bit of a shout for me for the upcoming exhibition series that will be happening next in terms of FIA on Gran Turismo Sport. So got a little bit of a wait until Gran Turismo 7, which I hope we see a big reboot of the FIA series. But as for GT Sport, we're probably going to have another couple of exhibition series before we even see Gran Turismo 7 hit the shelves. Let's see if it's not delayed too. But anyway, we are in the Toyota Supra, of course. Another very nice car. I like driving the Supra, so really no worries in terms of Group 3 here. It's the 86 that is really awful to try and race. But anyway, let's focus back onto the action of this particular race. Now, I was taking sort of a little bit of a different approach into this race because I've sort of been, you know, comparing a lot. I've been comparing myself a lot to Atom recently, who is also driving the Supra, and generally most of the time just has the pace edge on me. He's able to get better qualifying times with sort of less effort. You know, I don't want to say less effort as in to sort of take away from the amount of practice he does do, but you know, I witness him put in really quick laps and put in better race results more often than me. And I mean, if you have a look on this Supra here, I've got nearly 7,000 kilometers on the odometer. You'll see under the fuel gauge on the left hand side. So I've put in a lot of practice to get to the speed I am, and I feel as though Atom is able to get a better job of it. But I've noticed that Atom takes a lot calmer approaches into the races, you know, just braking early, getting the car turned in and getting on the power, rather than trying to brake as late as possible, which we're not going to do here. We're actually going to send it directly up the inside of the Honda NSX, taking full advantage of this car's really good performance on the brand new soft tyres. So we're sending it up the inside, a big banky boy, on the Honda, and that's up into 5th. So contrary to what I was saying, it doesn't appear that I'm going sort of gentle, but you know, I am. You know, I'm only 50% braking there to not run into the back of the Dodge. But yeah, that was my approach for basically this entire race. Just go nice and gentle, brake early, you know, don't sort of force the car, don't rush into the corners, because your car can step out and oversteer and understeer and all sorts there. As you can see, we get a nice line through the final turn. We get a good exit out of there. We're going to have the slipstream of the Dodge heading in towards turn 1. However, I think the Dodge is still in the slipstream of the car up in 3rd. Luckily, I pull out there, and I can now identify the car in 3rd is a Mazda RX Vision, as is the car in 2nd. But yeah, the slipstream that the Dodge had just meant I wasn't quite able to get the overspeed enough to pull alongside. However, the Mazda RX Vision has just made a hash at turn 1 and 2, and has not got the best runners through there. So plus his half-second penalty, he's going to serve on the exit of turn 4 at the end of sector 1. We should be able to go up into 4th by virtue of that penalty. Of course, the Dodge is going to promote himself up into 3rd, so we haven't really made an overtake at this stage. We are going to be looking to get the move on this Dodge done pretty much on this lap, because I can see the top 2 are just beginning to drive away a little bit, and it was a bit concerning for me, because I want to be fighting for those top spots there, because I'll be completely honest, at the moment, at this stage in the race, I didn't feel like I was pushing the car beyond the limit, and there's a penalty up in the leader. That's very pivotal to this race. As a leader, you don't want to be getting a penalty, so that Salamander behind Bo 93 in the lead, putting a load of pressure on and just forced Bo into a little bit of an error there. But as we're talking about that, we're going to be sending it down the inside of the Dodge at the big banky boy once again. One of the best overtaking opportunities at this track, because you can carry a load of speed on the entry, and the compression in the banking just helps get the car turned and rotated on the apex if you are narrow. So you can even send it down the inside, get a narrow entry, but still get a superior exit than the person who completed the move on. It's a very unique corner in that fact. So the 2 cars up ahead do appear to be slowing each other down at this stage, unfortunately for Bo. I think even just a small amount of tyre wear he's got on that Jaguar is just affecting his pace. He was obviously very quick in qualifying trim, and I mean, we've not even considered the possibility of slipstream in that qualifying lap. Somebody can of course pick up a slipstream for their entire qualifying lap, put in a lap that's 3, 4, 5 tenths quicker than what they do on their own, and put it on pole position. Because they're in the lead, they don't have the slipstream anymore, and maybe they didn't even have the pace to qualify as high up as they did. They only got there in terms of slipstream. I obviously haven't really driven against Bo 93 too much, so I can't comment too much on, you know, how quick he actually may be, but they're just a couple of points that sort of come to my mind when I sort of think about what's happening to Bo in this race. It has slowed Salamander down quite a lot, and Bo's actually put himself and slot himself in between myself and Salamander, and what that does is that gives me a nice slipstream. So hopefully I can use the slipstream off the back of Bo, get a little bit closer to him, and that should pull me ever closer to Salamander, especially as we're coming up to the straight of this lap, the longest straight on the track, 800 metres long here at Autodrome Lago Maggiore, and that leads down into the best overtaking opportunity on the circuit, turn 11. But we're going to head out onto the straight. We're 9 tenths behind the leader and 2 tenths behind Bo, so 9 take 2 is 7, so we can deduce there that Bo is within 7 tenths of Salamander and therefore in the slipstream, and that's evident there because I was not able to gain on Bo like I thought I could. And I mean, I lifted and coasted into turn 11, that time just saving a little bit of fuel, because we've also got a fuel save quite a lot in this race. But we are right up behind Bo at this stage. We're going to be looking to get the move done as soon as possible. I don't quite get the best run up through turn 13, so the move turn 14 is not going to be possible on this particular occasion. We are going to be looking, however, to get the move at the next best overtaking opportunity, which is turn 1 and 2. So as long as we're nice and close heading into the final turn, let's make sure we get on the brakes nice and early, get the car turned in, use all this curbing, don't get too much understeer. And we've actually done that quite well, given we're in dirty air also. Bo no longer has the slipstream of the leader, so we are going to be able to pull out of the slipstream, send it down the inside of turn 1. He's going to try and hang it round the outside. We get the much better rotation right on the apex, just park it in front of him and tip it into turn 2. Absolutely beautiful. We've got that move up into the lead, done and dusted. Not up into the lead, sorry, up into second. We've got that one done and dusted. The move for the lead is nowhere near by any means done and dusted at all. In fact, it's going to be pretty difficult to even say whether we'll even get it done, because Salamander 1.2 seconds up the road is definitely a sizable gap. So while the start has sort of fizzled itself out there, we actually got a very good start, didn't we? Just looking after the car, taking it nice and gently, and we've capitalised on penalties and mistakes, and we've made a couple of overtakes in there. So it's been a really awesome start, actually. One of the best starts I've had all manufacturers series, so I'll definitely be taking that. But now the race just sort of turns to, playing and driving to your strategy. So we're going to be doing a one stop in this race, going onto the soft tyres again. So I don't think there was any tyre requirements, but the soft tyre is the only available tyre, and the pit loss here is short enough that the one stop is actually viable. Pretty sure you can also no stop this race. I don't decide to no stop because I avoid a no stop pretty much any time it's possible. Unfortunately, in this case, it's not. But essentially, we're going to be making it to either lap 7 or lap 8, probably lap 7, because the heavy fuel load at the start of the race just gives you a little bit more tyre wear than you would in the second half of the race. So you get your extra lap, you get your extra lap long stint done in the second half of the race. We're going to be finishing up lap 4. We finished up turn 4 a long time ago at the start of the lap, would you believe it? But heading around the final turn, we cast our eyes behind to see that gap to Bo has opened up to 9/10 of a second, so we've broken the slipstream absolutely beautifully. And that's where we lapped for a couple of laps. We skip ahead to the end of lap 6, the start of lap 7, and someone's gone in for a pit stop behind. However, they're not going to be playing any part in this race. So we've got a couple of things to talk about here. Salamander has driven off a little bit. He's 2.5 seconds ahead from me now. So it's apparent at this stage that I think the strengths and weaknesses of the RX Vision and the Supra are sort of coming into effect here. The Supra is a very quick car with its full tyre life, so it's good when this race comes up in a daily race B, so no tyre wear or fuel. The Supra is the car, there is the go-to car. However, it does suffer on the tyre wear, so when we have this combination in FIA, theoretically the Supra should be very good in qualifying spec, but in the race you've probably got other cars with better tyre wear that are probably going to excel compared to the Supra, and one of the best cars on fuel and tyres is actually that Mazda RX Vision. So up in the lead with clear air, no people to contend with, no slipstream, Salamander can just put in the laps, use what he learnt in all of his practice, all of his solo time trialling and qualifying runs. He can just do that up in the lead, and he's just creeping away ever so slightly, a little tiny fraction corner by corner. He's just extending that gap out to me as I'm beginning to sort of suffer with the Supra's poor tyre wear. So playing into that idea, I'm actually going to complete my pit stop at the end of this lap. This is going to be my in lap, and we will see exactly how I've done with fuel as well when we go into the pit stops. We will be able to see the current fuel progress on the car, and the game will also place a diamond along the fuel bar, which is where it predicts my fuel should be to make it to the end of the race. So Salamander, we'll see if he goes in the pits also, if he does extend his first stint by one extra lap. But Salamander goes in with 53% of fuel. I round the final turn and go in with 54% of fuel. I've done a slightly better job on fuel compared to Salamander. Of course, there's no refueling to be done here, as everyone that's gone in the pits here has done a fairly similar job, although SC from LA has 56% of fuel, so he's done a really good job. And if you were paying attention to the little diamond on the fuel bar as the mechanics release us from the pits, we actually slightly underfueled in terms of making it to the end on the current fuel use. Only slightly, so we will just have to keep fuel saving kind of at the level we are, but also make sure we can do a little bit of extra saving on top. So we're going to be employing some extra fuel-saving techniques. The short shift, which we've been doing, the Supra really doesn't enjoy the short shift at all. It does lose a lot of its straight line grunt from the short shift, but unfortunately in this race we were kind of left with no option. You know, I could be using the fuel mapping, but I find I tend to make more mistakes if I'm fiddling with the fuel maps as well as controlling the car, whereas I can just pick a point to shift this car and then just sort of get used to the tone of the engine at the point where I need to shift, and then I can just listen to the car from then on and shift at the exact right point by, going from the tone of the engine and just how high it's revving. And that actually I think that's actually helping me in in the strategy that I'm employing for this race, going nice and gentle, lifting and coasting into corners, short shifting. I think it just helps keep me calm, because I think what can happen is you get really, really emotionally invested in the race, and you begin to make silly mistakes, and I think something that can kind of affect that, in terms of a psychological impact it may have on you, is the engine, because I think the really high revving engine can just sort of play into the high octane situation of a race, and you've got the high engine revving, other cars around you not being able to predict, you may be a little bit frustrated because something hasn't quite gone your way. Then you've got the high revs going into your ears, just blasting into your ears. It can really rile you up and sort of get the adrenaline levels flowing, and that's not really very good in terms of trying to actually, lap cleanly and consistently. You want to be calm, you want to be cool and collected to try and get the car around the circuit as smoothly, as cleanly, and as beautifully as humanly possible. But while we've been talking about that, we are going to be just looking on the bottom right-hand side of our screen. The fuel gauge didn't quite catch exactly how many laps remaining there were when we crossed the line. However, a couple of people up ahead have gone into the pit, so we're back up into third, and you might be looking at this stage, there's still another car in the mix. He's come out of nowhere, apparently. Endershoe JI. That's actually a no-stopper. He's not pitted yet, and it's given Salamander a little bit of a problem, because Salamander has lost a slight bit of time getting stuck behind that no-stopper, and that is a little bit of a problem on the one-stop strategy. You want to make sure you can minimise the time loss from your traffic that you get from going into the pits, and Salamander's, he's done an okay job, but again, he's still lost time. It was about 3.4 seconds on the exit of the pits, and it dipped down to about 2.9 halfway through the S's, so losing a good half a second stuck behind Endershoe. And at this stage, it's kind of beginning to look a little bit unrealistic for me to be able to catch all of this time back up, because I've still got a little bit of a fuel deficit to try and make up. Salamander may find it a little bit easier to save some fuel because he's got the Mazda RX Vision to do so. However, in this Supra, the more you short shift, the more you lose pace, so it's really a delicate balance to try and save enough fuel. And while I'm saving fuel, I'm not making pace, so it's going to be really, really difficult to try and catch 2.9 seconds back into Salamander. So basically from here on out, I'm just using the gap to Salamander, so the red number to the right of my name on the totem on the left side of your screen, currently at 3.0. That's really just sort of a reference for me. Just, how much can I keep up with Salamander? But I don't expect to catch him. I expect to lose him from this point on, as we set our fastest lap of the race for 54.4. It's actually not a bad race lap at all. Current fastest lap of the race is only 54.2, so we're only 0.2 off the fastest lap currently. But yes, as I was saying before, I don't really expect to be able to catch Salamander towards the end of this race. I'm really just looking to limit the amount of time loss. I mean, it does sort of get to a point where I do kind of just take it really easy to not make a mistake, but that's more so in the last couple of laps of the race, where I do have a bit of a margin ahead and behind. But at this stage, we are going to be looking to try and catch up to Endershoe as quickly as possible and try and get past as quickly as possible, because at this stage, on lap 10, if you haven't made a pit stop by lap 10, you're better off just going for a no-stop. So I think it's a pretty safe assumption at this point to say that Endershoe will probably be going for a no-stop strategy. As we round out onto the main straight, let's have a look at the time gap to Endershoe. It's not quite worked out exactly as I'd like, because we're just outside of the slipstream range. we are going to be catching, because he's driving the Subaru, which isn't the best car in a straight line. It's one of the slowest in a straight line, if I could recall correctly, compared to the Supra, which is one of the better ones. So we were catching down the straight, but unfortunately we just weren't close enough to be within the slipstream for the whole straight, so we haven't quite been able to get this move done. However, it looks like we're going to be catching him, and we look straight to the inside at turn 14. No mucking around there, straight up the inside as soon as we catch up to the back of him, and turn 14 is actually quietly a pretty good overtaking opportunity. So this track, very good for overtaking, especially in Group 3, so a race here at Maggiore is always a very good one. But we've got past Endershoe, and we are going to flick over to the fuel map very, very quickly just to see how much we have. It's 5.0 laps as we're heading up across the line. We go back to the radar to make sure we're prepared for any door banging that may happen between myself and Endershoe as we bunch up into turn 1 and 2. But it's looking okay at this stage. 5.0 laps remaining on the fuel gauge with 5.0 laps remaining in the race. It's looking very good at this stage. We've been saving fuel nicely, you know, just looking after the tyres, looking after the car, and at this stage, basically it looks as though, because Bo has dropped off, the only last possible thing that can interrupt bringing home second place is Endershoe catching back up. But at this stage, it's really, really unlikely that he's going to, because he's going to be dropping off the pace just like that. And I mean, we've rounded turn 5 and seen that he's actually dropped out of the slipstream range. So now we're left on our own, no one in the slipstream, we're not in anyone else's slipstream. Salamander's driven off. We're just going to be looking to just continue to save fuel throughout the end of this lap and just see and make sure that we actually have made up the little bit of a deficit that we had at the pit stop. So we flicked over to the fuel map, and we're going to be looking at some of the fuel saving techniques that I'm going to do towards the end of this lap. And all I'm looking for, I want to absolutely confirm for good that we're going to have 4.0 laps remaining as we cross the line at the end of this lap. It's hard to say exactly how much of the lap we have left, but, you know, laps remaining 4.3, I would say we probably do have 0.3 of a lap remaining before we get down to 4.0 laps in the race. As we're heading up towards turn 14 and 15, we are currently blue on our current race lap time, which is good because we're still fuel saving and we're still going in the 54s, which is very, very good race pace. And I mean, at the start of the race, we were in the 55s by lap 3, but as we head down through turn 17, getting on the power nice and gently, downshifting to 3rd for some extra rotation right on the apex and back up to 4th, up across the line. That is 4.0 laps remaining. There's not really much else that can interrupt me to the end here, so we're going to skip pretty much to the end of the last lap and just see how close we actually are with fuel, because currently we've got 0.2 laps remaining with 1% of fuel left. And I mean, the fuel use was relatively slow, and you do have to remember that once you actually get down to 0%, that's actually still a whole percent, because you've got to go 0.9, 0.8, 0.7. You can't see the decimal point, but you do have a whole percent of fuel once it does flick to 0, and that's exactly what's happened here as we're heading up across the line to bring home second place. 0.0 laps remaining, 0% of fuel, second place behind Salamander. That's an absolutely stellar drive, if I do say so myself, and that, my friends, I would say that's redemption from yesterday. Second place, that was a really, really mature drive, if I do say so myself. 286 points. That is my best ever points result in any of these FIA Sport Mode races. That's absolutely fantastic. I've definitely made up for yesterday's blunder. And the fact that Salamander got first as well, you know, I took Salamander out in the last race, so that's what happened yesterday. That was when I went from hero to absolute zero in about no time at all. I crashed into Salamander and then my race just went downhill because I pitted too early and my tyre wear was so bad. But I really I could not think of a better result for that race. Salamander got a win, I got P2 and my personal best score. That's pretty much everything I could ask for to wrap up the Manufacturers Series for 2021. And yes, you heard that right, that is the end of my Manufacturers campaign for 2021. I did not do the last race, Group 4 at Fuji, because that race, surprise, surprise, was another really awful no-stop. And the Toyota 86 at Fuji isn't the best combination in the race at all, because you've got that very long 1.475 kilometre long main straight at Fuji, where the 86 just feels like you're pushing through 8 tons of water as you're heading down a straight line. But yes, that wraps up manufacturers. I finished 60th in the region, so that includes Oceania and all of Asia, so not a bad showing at all. And in terms of the manufacturer ranking, I finished 4th for Toyota, so a really good result actually. I'm really happy with P4 for Toyota, only behind Atom, Yamanaka and Takari. So Takari and Yamanaka were just flat out and untouchable. I had a pretty good battle with Atom, but he just edged me by 29 points. Cheeky little bugger. But no, he's done well. He did very well, especially in round 2, bringing home 297 points. It was a really solid result, and that's set him up very nicely to try and beat me in this season, and he's done exactly that. So massive well done to Atom. But for us, we overtook Shimon towards the end with that 286 that we just got, so I was really happy to get that, because Shimon was proved to be a very good rival for me all season. But that wraps it up. I look forward to Exhibition. I'm going to be experimenting with some different manufacturers during the Exhibition series and see if anything sort of piques my interest. It has an actual solid Group 4 car, please. I really would like to be more competitive in the Group 4s. But anyway, I could waffle on for ages, so I'm going to wrap this one up here. So do hit the like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, and constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.